Welcome back to Service Worker Politics, where you don't need a degree to have an opinion on politics. Today it's been a rather interesting one. So we've had an interview with Jacob Rees-Mogg, flat out refusing to admit that the emergency measures enforced by the Bank of England to bail out the economy were unprecedented. Liz Truss flatly sticking to her pledge of not ramping up public spending cuts. And a litany of financial institutions stating that the country is not actually doing that well. So we're going to be asking the question of why can't the Tories admit that their financial policy is damaging the economy? First, we're going to take a look at an interview with Jacob Rees-Mogg this morning on LBC.
Secretary of State, we have the emergency measures put in place by the Governor of the Bank of England, allocating scores of billions of pounds. You aren't honestly expecting my listeners to believe the situation's under control, are you?
Well, actually, interventions have been taking place in other countries as well.
But if we restrict it to the United Kingdom, if we may...
It is a global issue, however. The whole inflationary issue is a global issue. It relates to quantitative easing going back 14, 15 years that was done for the financial crisis and then for COVID. It is an absolutely classic monetary expansion that is having an effect on prices, which is now being pulled back, and this is something affecting the world, compounded by the increase in energy prices, which is also affecting the world.
Secretary of State, when was the last time the Bank of England had to intervene with £65 billion worth of cash to prop up pensions?
Well, the pensions issue relates to pension funds in an environment of very low interest rates.
These are unprecedented emergency measures on your watch, you and your colleagues' watch.
The Bank of England takes measures that deal with circumstances as they arise.
These are unprecedented emergency measures. Now, whether you get there or not is another matter, but will you accept that we currently need unprecedented emergency measures?
Needless to say, he would not admit that we currently need unprecedented measures to try and bail out the economy. To be fair to the Victorian nightmare that is Jacob Rees-Mogg, some of the points he made were valid and true. The UK economy isn't the only one to be struggling with rampant inflation. This is a global problem, yes. Also, as well, the comments made about the quantitative easing is also completely valid. The UK economy over the last 15 years has been pumping a lot of money in, and this will lead to inflation further down the line. That is rather basic economic thought, and it's proven to be true. The only thing here is that he is still refusing to admit that it's his own party's fiscal policy that is causing further damage. Now, the Bank of England was not funneling £60 billion worth of money into bonds to stabilise them before the mini budget. It was the uncosted tax breaks that the Conservative Party decided to thrust in that resulted in vast and very damning economic shock. But this seems to be a logic that the Conservative Party are just unable to see. Now, the Tories are trying to grasp at anything in order to claim some financial victory over for the mini budget. This was posted on the Conservative Twitter today from the Telegraph, saying that Kwasi's mini budget will boost economic growth in Britain amidst the IMF, as if the IMF is some sort of rogue group that need to be dragged to account, when actually what they said was that the mini budget will most likely lead to short-term growth. This is not long-term growth that the economy needs in order to get itself out of the hole that it is in. It will lead to a short-term spike and then a rather large decline. Bearing in mind that today the ONS said that GDP in August fell to 0.3%, and now it is looking like that the country will end up in recession before the end of the year. Now, does short-term growth really sound like the best idea in these circumstances? Well, obviously the Conservative Party thinks yes. So, not only that, the Institute for Financial Studies today said that the UK government would have to institute £60 billion worth of spending cuts in the government's budgets in order to balance the books. Well, Liz Truss had an interesting answer to this one. So let's have a look at a short clip from PMQs today, where Keir Starmer asked her if she was going to stick to her pledge of no spending cuts.
Contest, the Prime Minister said, and I quote her exactly, "I'm very clear. I'm not planning public spending reductions." Is she going to stick to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll see how long she sticks to that pledge. Most likely not very long. Also, as well, with this looming on £60 billion worth of spending cuts that could be potentially, well, most likely will be needed in the UK economy, this will most likely lead to austerity 2.0 at a point where people are more reliant on public services more than ever that have already been cut to the bone by the Conservatives' policies of austerity. Now, it's becoming very, very clear to anyone who can see what the Conservative Party is doing. It is in a severe case of denial. It is looking like someone who thinks they're a card shark holding a bunch of pawns, thinking that they have a flush. So we'll keep an eye on this space, but I would quite like your answers in the comments. Why do you think the Conservative Party are unable to admit that their policies have damaged the UK economy? Give us a like, give us a share, and I will catch you on the next one.